At 10:45 in the morning, she texted her mother from inside the gym, "Mum, he's turned up at the gym and come next to me." Her mother told her to go straight home. She gathered her things. She walked to her car. She was doing exactly what she had been told to do. She never made it out of the car park. Molly McLaren had done everything right. She had reported him to police. Twice. She had told her friends she was scared. She had asked questions, "How does he know where I am?" and worked out the answer in real time. Her family had given photographs of him to their neighbours, asking them to watch for him. She had left. She had spoken up. She had stayed alert. None of it was enough to keep her alive. This is the story of a 23-year-old student from Cobham, Kent. A young woman who had already survived one of the hardest battles of her life, who was building something purposeful and extraordinary with the time she had, and who was killed in broad daylight in a public car park in front of witnesses because a man she chose to leave refused to accept that choice. This is the story of Molly McLaren, and it is a story about more than one man's violence. It is a story about what happens when a system treats documented, escalating danger as a problem requiring a phone call. Molly McLaren was born on the 26th of June 1994 in Cobham, a quiet village in Kent. She grew up in a close, warm family, her parents Doug and Joanne, and her older brother Tom. The kind of family where you call your mum when something frightens you. The kind where a father working offshore gets a phone call that ends everything and has to fly home to a house full of people who loved her. Those who knew Molly reached for the same words again and again. Bubbly, warm, sociable, the kind of person who filled a room without trying. Her mother Joanne didn't see Molly only as a daughter. She described her as one of her closest friends. But behind that warmth, Molly had been fighting something private and difficult for years. She had struggled with bulimia for a significant portion of her adult life. Eating disorders live in the body and the mind at the same time. They rarely announced themselves to the outside world. Molly fought hers quietly until she decided to fight it differently. She enrolled at the University of Kent to study sport and exercise science. The choice was not accidental. She was using her education to build the intellectual framework for her own recovery, understanding nutrition, movement, and how a body heals from the inside out. It was working. And then she went further. She wrote blog posts about eating disorder recovery. She shared her experience openly because, as her close friend Amy Lee later said, Molly found real comfort in that honesty. She knew someone out there was going through the same thing in silence, and she wanted them to know that recovery was possible. She had been that person once. She didn't want anyone else to stay there longer than necessary. Her grades were at distinction level. Her parents later collected her diploma at Rochester Cathedral. They believed she would have achieved a first-class honours degree had she been allowed to finish her final year. She was 23 years old. She had survived one war with herself. She was building a future designed to help other people win theirs. In 2016, Molly matched with Joshua Stimpson on Tinder. He was 25 years old, a warehouse worker from Hoodham, near Rochester, just 7 miles from Cobham. He was quiet, clearly devoted to her. When Molly brought him home, her parents had no alarm bells. Her father Doug later said, in his own words, no red flags. But there was one early concern. Stimpson had told Molly he suffered from bipolar disorder. Joanne worried, but Molly reassured her. Of all people, Molly understood what it meant to carry a difficult mental health label. She believed they could support each other through their separate struggles. She extended him the same compassion she had learned to extend to herself through recovery. That compassion would be exploited in the most calculated way. As the months passed, a pattern became visible. Stimpson always had to be present, on nights out with her friends, in every available space of her daily life. Her friend Amy Lee would later testify in court that Molly told her she had no me time. He wasn't a boyfriend who loved spending time together. He was someone who appeared structurally unable to tolerate Molly existing as a separate person with her own space. This dynamic, coercive control wearing the costume of devotion, was already in place long before any public harassment began. The relationship lasted around 7 months. On June 17, 2017, after a night out in Maidstone, Molly ended it. Stimpson did not grieve quietly. He did not withdraw. What he did next, step by step, day by day, was methodical, and it ended 12 days later in a public car park with a kitchen knife. Within days of the breakup, Stimpson began posting derogatory content about Molly on Facebook. False public claims that she had taken drugs, photographs shared without her consent. Her mother Joanne tagged in the posts deliberately, so her entire family would see them. These were not the actions of a heartbroken young man. They were reputation attacks, calculated, targeted, intentional damage designed to humiliate Molly publicly, to punish her for the act of leaving, and to keep himself forcibly present in her life after she had chosen to exit it. Molly reported it to the police. She didn't go alone. She went with her mother, Joanne, to North Kent Police Station. An officer called Stimpson, while they were present, and warned him, "Stop the behaviour or face prosecution." His response, when told that they wouldn't want Molly to have to come back to the police station about him, was a single question: wouldn't we? Not contrition, not compliance, pure defiance. He was not arrested, he was warned, and he continued. Molly told her friends she felt like she was always looking over her shoulder. She worried he might appear at her house. Her family gave photographs of Stimpson to their neighbours, asking them to watch for him. On the evening of June 28th, the night before her death, Molly was out with friends when Stimpson appeared uninvited at the same venue. Amy Lee later told the court that Molly was left physically shaking when she saw him. She told Amy that police had already spoken to him, as though a warning from officers should have functioned as a wall he wouldn't cross again. She was trying to make the situation make sense. She couldn't, because Stimpson had no intention of stopping. She went home that night. She woke up the next morning, and she made the decision that she was not going to let fear take her life before he did. She got in her car and drove to the gym. Pure Gym at the Dockside Retail Park in Chatham was a regular part of Molly's routine. For her, the gym wasn't simply about fitness. It had been part of her recovery, a place connected to healing, to the healthy relationship with her own body she had worked so hard to build. It was supposed to be hers. Joshua Stimpson also arrived at Pure Gym that morning. CCTV footage later captured him walking up and down the gym stairs, back and forth, before entering the fitness floor and placing his exercise mat directly next to Molly's. At 10:45 a.m, Molly sent a text to her mother, "Mum, he's turned up at the gym and come next to me." Joanne told her to go straight home. At around 10:59 a.m, she also messaged Amy Lee. She hadn't posted on Snapchat, she hadn't told anyone where she was going. Yet Stimpson had found her the night before at the pub, and now here. She wrote to Amy, "Last night and this morning is starting to look dodgy." She was working it out in real time. Thinking clearly about a man who was hunting her, she was right. Inside the gym, she confronted him, asked why he wasn't at work. He told her it was none of her business. Shortly before 11 a.m, Molly gathered her things and left. She was following every instruction she had been given. She walked to her car in the Dockside car park. She was going home. What Molly didn't know was that 2 days earlier, June 27th, 2017, Stimpson had walked into an Asda in Chatham and purchased a kitchen knife. Within 30 minutes of that purchase, he was inside a nearby home base buying a pickaxe. 2 separate shops, 2 separate transactions, both captured on CCTV. He had not arrived in that car park by accident or in a moment of uncontrolled rage. He had come prepared. Stimpson pulled his vehicle close to Molly's. He got out with the engine still running. He attacked her inside her own car. Molly McLaren was stabbed 75 times. She tried to fight back. She was screaming, sounding her horn. A passerby named Benjamin Morton saw what was happening and ran toward the car. He tried to intervene. The attack was already too far underway. Molly died at the scene. When police arrested Stimpson in the car park, covered in blood, wandering near the vehicle, he was calm. He told officers, "She's in the car. I've killed her." Inside his vehicle, the murder weapon, 2 Stanley knives and the pickaxe. Joshua Stimpson was tried at Maidstone Crown Court in early 2018. He admitted he had killed Molly. He denied murder. His plea was manslaughter by diminished responsibility. The legal argument that his mental state had substantially impaired his judgment and self-control at the time of the killing. His defense psychiatrist described him as emotionally unstable, hypersensitive to rejection, shaped by trauma after his mother left when he was a teenager. But the prosecution's case was not built on emotion. It was built on evidence. The CCTV network at Dockside told the story without ambiguity. Cameras captured Stimpson arriving at the gym, pacing the stairs before entering, placing his mat deliberately next to Molly's. Then, following her out into the car park. There was no gap in the footage that left room for an alternative interpretation. The sequence was chronological, continuous, and unambiguous. The weapon purchase record sealed it. 2 days before the murder, a kitchen knife at Astor, a pickaxe at home base within 30 minutes. Both transactions verified by CCTV and receipts. At the murder weapon, 2 Stanley knives and that pickaxe all recovered from his car. The prosecution's argument was simple. A man who arrives at a confrontation carrying 4 weapons across 2 separate shopping trips, made before the confrontation, is not a man who lost control in a moment. He is a man who planned. And then there was Stimpson himself, interviewed in a custody cell, on the evening of the killing by a psychiatric nurse. She asked him whether he had had thoughts of harming Molly before the day of the attack. He told her, "Maybe yesterday, but I didn't act on them." The jury also heard from 2 former girlfriends. Alexandra Dale, who dated Stimpson in 2013, testified via video link that he had followed her without her knowledge, taken secret photographs of her, warned her not to speak to other men, threatened to fly to her holiday destination and drown her, and, before she had ever told him where she lived, sent her a photograph of her own back garden. Leah Hubbard described how became increasingly controlling when she was unavailable. He followed her around a Maidstone bar. He spat a drink over her at a party. He later appeared at her flat window at 2:00 a.m. asking to charge his phone. This testimony was not about character. It was about pattern, proof that Molly was not the first woman Joshua Stimpson had made afraid. Just the one he had weapons for when the escalation came. The prosecution psychiatrist, Dr. Philip Joseph, saw the same man the defense psychiatrist had described and reached a completely different conclusion. Stimpson had narcissistic traits. He was vain, immature, needy, unable to prioritize another person's feelings. But he had no personality disorder, and the killing was too deliberately planned to be explained away by any psychiatric framing. Planning requires intent. Intent is murder. Stimpson did not testify in his own defense. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. On February 6, 2018, they returned a unanimous verdict, guilty of murder. Judge Adele Williams sentenced Stimpson to life imprisonment, with a minimum term of 26 years. She used 3 words to describe the killing: cruel, calculated, cowardly. She said Stimpson had deliberately ended Molly's life to punish her for leaving him. She said he was highly dangerous, that he posed a serious and continuing risk to women, and that he might never be released. Her final words to him: "You slit her throat while repeatedly stabbing her. You were determined to punish her for finishing with you. You were seeking revenge." But the verdict was not the most painful revelation of this case. Because after Molly's death, something else came to light. Something that her father, Doug, later said might have changed everything. Here is what emerged when Kent Police reported itself to the Independent Police Complaints Commission after Molly's death. The officers who handled Molly's reports in June 2017, the officers who warned Stimpson twice. The second time, just 2 days before he killed her, were working without the full picture of who Joshua Stimpson actually was to women who tried to leave him. Because years before Molly, Stimpson had been investigated by Staffordshire police for alleged aggressive behaviour toward a previous girlfriend. That incident had never been recorded as a crime. It had never been placed on a shared, accessible file. The Kent police officers did not know about it. Molly's father, Doug, later said, "If when Joanne and Molly went to Kent police, they could have tracked down the alleged crime in Staffordshire, it might have thrown a whole new light on things, and it might have raised a few alarms. Arguably, Molly might still be alive." In a 2022 interview with ITV News, Molly's parents gave an honest account of what their lives had become. Joanne said she still struggled to leave the house, except for food shopping. Doug described permanent damage to his ability to function in daily life, and yet both of them were still fighting. They called for greater information sharing between police forces. They called for the legal tools, including stalking protection orders, introduced in England and Wales in January 2020, partly because of cases like Molly's, to actually be used. These orders allow courts to impose conditions on a stalker before any criminal conviction at the earliest stage of identified risk. Doug and Joanne McLaren said that was not good enough. Benjamin Morton, the stranger who ran toward the attack instead of away from it, who tried to pull Stimpson off even when the attack was too far gone to stop, was later honoured for his bravery by the High Sheriff of Kent. He couldn't save her, but he tried. He should be in every version of this story. The Molly McLaren Foundation was established by her family and friends after her death. It funded evidence-based therapy and support for eating disorder recovery. By 2022, it had helped 18 individuals and families and raised more than £73,000. Mollyfest, a charity festival created around what would have been her 24th birthday, was designed to celebrate who she was. Her father said she loved festivals, so they gave her one. People who loved her gathered. Her name was spoken in celebration, not only in grief. Molly McLaren was 23 years old. She had survived a private war with her own body, turned that survival into advocacy, and was building a future designed around helping other people heal. She was a daughter, a sister, a friend, a student. A fighter who had already won a fight most people never have to face. She was killed because a man she chose to leave refused to accept that choice. She was killed despite reporting him. Despite telling everyone around her that she was scared. Despite doing everything she was told to do. And she was killed while a system that should have protected her treated documented, escalating danger as a matter of warnings rather than action. Her parents are still fighting for that to change. Her name is still attached to services that help young people recover from eating disorders. Her diploma, collected at Rochester Cathedral by two parents who should never have had to stand in her place, exists somewhere in their home. Remember who she was before she was a headline. If you made it to the end of this story, if you sat with Molly through all of it, then you already know why this channel exists. Because the headlines about cases like this one don't last long. A verdict is delivered, a courtroom empties, and the families are left carrying something that never gets lighter. The least we can do is make sure the names don't disappear. If you believe that, subscribe. Every case we cover completely, not just the crime, the person, the life, the warning signs, the systems that failed. Hit subscribe, turn on the bell, and share this with one person who needs to hear Molly's name. Because she was not a statistic. She was not a Tinder case. She was not a cautionary tale. She was Molly. And she deserved so much better.